Hey there, and welcome back to Hold and Modify. It's Q, your host of YouTube's most poorly produced, underproduced channel, and we are in our continued adventure of showing off the slow growth of computer rendering graphics technology for the home user with our classic LightWave 3D. Yes, we're on version 6, and this is getting really closer and closer to where things are currently today. I mean, a lot of the technologies that existed back then, we have today, of course, much improved and many more. We're starting to see the slow crossover from what we might call ancient and old 3D software versus, the more current and modern newer softwares. Last time here on Hold and Modify, we were looking at global illumination. Yes, the first version of, what LightWave was implementing for a more advanced global illumination capability with its radiosity version. I mean, yes, you could argue that ambient light is a version of global illumination. Of course it is. It's just a very omnipresent version of it. It was not even ambient occluded or anything. The radiosity was, an early version of this. Some of you had mentioned that, yes, there was Monte Carlo radiosity available for desktop softwares back then. There was, you would find that in the more expensive, more advanced software. LightWave did not get Monte Carlo style radiosity until later. It would come eventually, but I'm only covering what we have here in 6.0. And yeah, someone had mentioned too, did it do caustics to handle the transparency? Because I had mentioned, and yeah, there is a caustics option here. It's pretty basic. But what I wanted to jump into here before we spend too much time talking more about something we already covered in the last video is the other neat little thing they included here, and that is a volumetric lighting. So if we move over to here, you see this magic little button here, volumetric lighting. And what I've done real quick here is just set up a very, very basic scene to illustrate these volumetric lights. We have a distant light, which is kind of like our sun. We have a more classic spotlight over here, and then we have, of course, the point light. Now, I've gone ahead and turned on volumetrics for the distant light, and then we're going to go down here to our spotlight, and it's turned on as well, and our point light, it's turned on as well. We're just going to use the defaults. All we've done is add these lights and just turned on volumetrics. Let's see what we get. So as you can see, there we go. We have these volume shaders for the lights. And yes, you'd kind of be wondering like, well, wait a minute, a sunlight, how is a sunlight going to be a volumetric light? It's kind of an omnipresent, glowing sun. I mean, if anything, you might think it should cause a global, like atmospheric fog type effect. One of the neat things about the distant light and its volumetric properties is it does create this cone. If you look at the top of the screen here, we're seeing this cone. And this is when volumetric lights kind of became an effects tool for all of us artists way back in the day, because not only was it about creating just nice, cool, dramatic, foggy looking lights, you could now utilize these lights to actually create effects. For example, because this distant light is a tube, effectively, you can use it maybe to do exhaust on the end of an engine nozzle. It could be a phaser or a beam. All kinds of things could happen. Of course, yes, the point light you see here, which is this little orb, spherical glowy thing here, you could do all kinds of things with this as well. You could texture it, you could animate images across it, all kinds of fun things. Volumetric lights were more than just, I want to see my lights in fog. They actually became effects tools, kind of like the lens flare was way back in the day. When we very first got lens flare, everyone was using it to, I have an explosion in my scene, so I use a lens flare, and that's my explosion. Volumetric lighting pretty much went down that same path with all of its fun little options. So I want to keep things simpler. So all we should be seeing now is just that spotlight up in the corner. There it is, very iconic, very boring looking volumetric light. For those of you who've been watching this video, whenever you tried to do this in the past, you'd actually have to use a mesh and then apply a custom shader to it or put some transparency on it through a texture map to try and fake this whole thing. Because this is a real volumetric light, we can even do something like, we'll go to over here to our last key, and we'll rotate the light and have it blast up here at camera. And if we hit F9 now, we don't have to worry about the mesh or the shader. Yes, there it is. It's now blasting us, pointing right at the camera. There's nothing more we have to do for that. So let's go into the options. Obviously, we can do more than this, right? I mean, we can change its color. We can make it yellow. Now you notice that every time I make an adjustment on this volumetric light, I keep hitting F9 to show us a result. It's a little tedious, yeah, because you tweak something and you just want to see it happen right away. There is a way around that. I'm going to show you that in a second here. By the way, intensity fall off, we have this on our lights, a little more advanced now, inverse square and inverse distance and linear. And yeah, as far as I know, they still limit it to the nominal range here. There's no way to edit the curves or anything back then. But remember, this is very, very old software still, guys. We're talking 1999, 98 era. This stuff is still quite old. And yes, if you do apply that fall off, it is going to affect the illumination range of that volumetric light. I'm going to turn that off now that we've illustrated that so we can see more clearly what's going on. So let's go to our volumetric light options. In here we see some interesting things now. So now you see a quality, it's set to medium by default, and it can go to as high as best. This is going to become more important once you start putting like textured things on your volumetric light. If you have this set too low, your textured light is going to look a little crunchy, little old school video gamey. There's some pretty simple settings here. You've got like attenuation, opacity, luminosity, and height. For example, we're going to look at this right now with F9, and I want you to pay close attention. So you can kind of see that it's coming out, let's see if we can do this like this here. Here we go. You can see where the light's coming out. So if you take this height and you ramp it way, 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 way down, and we do another render there, you can see what it's done. It's basically reduced how far it throws out. Q, couldn't you just do that by doing intensity fall off? You can, but remember, intensity fall off is also going to affect the illumination properties of the light or how it lights something up. So if you just want to attenuate how much fog there is coming from that light, but you don't want to attenuate its illumination, that's what this value is for here. It's just really, really handy. And same for all of these other controls. I mean, you can make the lights beam more opaque or super, super bright. And you can see there's little E's here. How do you texture this? You mentioned texturing Q. Well, there is the edit texture button, and you have a couple options here. When you come in here, it's the familiar LightWave, texturing, and this is where you can put on some classic turbulence and go ahead and we'll add some contrast. And let's go ahead and press F9 again. And don't really see much right now because we've enabled this texture, but remember, it's an additive effect onto what's already there, so not seeing much. Now, one quick shortcut, and they thought of this. They knew that some of you were just interested in the effect of the volume light. You can click the texture only button. Watch what happens now. So there, that's probably more what you were expecting, right? You added some noise to it, and now you have this kind of foggy, misty, yellow thing going on right there. And yes, of course, because this is a conventional texture, you can go in here and animate its position and offset it and do all kinds of fun things. And here's your graph editor. You can go in here and set your keyframes and make the fog move and undulate and be all misty. One of the drawbacks you can see probably is I have to keep pressing the F9 button. It would be really nice to just tweak this and see my results so I can understand better how all of these work, right? One of the best ways to learn a new tool is real-time feedback. That's where the VIPER comes in, or Viper. It's a tool here that's really flourished in 6.0 LightWave. It's available in the Surface Editor, and yes, it is available in the volumetric system. So when you open this up, look at that, right away, you get this now real-time preview system. This is back in 1998, 1999. Very, very handy system. And there's some options here depending on what version of the editor you're using, whether it's for the Surface Editor or something else. And yes, we can control the size. We're currently at 320 by 240. You can go as high as 640 by 480. Look at that, look how big that is. Can our mighty system handle this? Well, it does get a little slower, but that's still not unreasonable. I often find though that, yeah, we can just leave it alone. I'll go to like 480 by 360 because I know a lot of you watch this stuff on your phone. We don't want to make it too small. We are in draft mode, so yeah, that makes it a little crunchy if you like turn off the draft mode. You see it slows down. Looks a lot better. If you're just doing fast tweaks though, you're gonna be okay with the draft mode. And it's not just rendering these stills here. I mean, the real-time feedback is appreciated. Watch this, we'll mess with redshift. Look at that. Ooh, that looks nice, doesn't it? It's kind of like a nice little red, well, it says redshift, and that's exactly what it did. But you can see what's happening here, how I'm able to come in here and adjust values, and we get to see the result right away. In addition to just seeing the still, image here of what we're tweaking as we're real-time adjusting here, you can do animation. So we go back to our texture and like, all right, well, you said you could animate this noise so that it doesn't look static. We want to make it look like it's a slow-moving mist. You could come in here and we'll go ahead with our little graph editor, expand this out so you can see it a little better. We will create a keyframe at 30. So here we go, we've got our keyframe there, and then we need to make the spline mode linear. Go over here and grab this one, and we'll make it linear. And the second one over here, we will make this, I don't know, what do you think? 0.5. End behaviors, we wanna make linear, and the post behavior, we wanna make linear. So this is going to effectively just make it continues forever moving in the direction that I want it to move. As you can see here, it's going to go from 0 to half a meter over 30. That might be really fast. I'm just trying to illustrate the process here. We'll click on that. You can see over here, we can go to make preview. Now you'll see it just starts going through, and you'll look at the time slider down here on the bottom, and it's moving forward all on its own. And here it goes. It's going through and making that preview without us having to initiate a full render and save out frames and then compress those frames into an animation that we can play back. It's all doing it right here. And if you don't want to watch the whole thing because you only need to see, 5 or 10 of these frames, you can hit escape and there you go. You get your VCR controls, you can press play and look at that. You can see the motion. Now, I was animating that light, so you're seeing the light not only have its noise undulate slowly from left to right, you're also seeing the light rolling up at us. So this is one of the really neat things that kind of goes hand in hand with the volumetric system in LightWave 6. We finally got these volumetric lights, this volumetric system to play around with. It really is a complement with Viper so that we can actually use it in a way that's practical, so we're not always having to wait for renders to see the result of our work. I think you can see right away how much easier it would be to learn a tool or understand what these values do when you have this kind of playback system available. And then when you're all done, you just click that free preview button right there and it takes you back to the normal Viper window. So I've gone ahead now and I've removed the keyframes from the light. I want to keep this illustration a little more simplistic. I don't want the light moving to distract from what I might be doing here and showing you. So now we just have our static light. So if you come back here, there she is. Once this volumetrics engine came out, of course, third-party developers got on board and they came out with some neat things. There were a lot of cool third-party packs that came out, but LightWave did include some presets for you to mess with. If you go to the preset shelf here, you'll see they've got some presets for you. Jet exhaust, flame 2, look at that, mist shaft. So there are some fun things in here. Look at this. This even has kind of like shock ring effects. If you look closely, the neon plasma. Now this is meant for a distant light, so I don't want to apply this to a spotlight. Ooh, tractor beam. Anyway, let's go back to our spotlight. We'll get to those in a second here. We'll go back to our spotlight and you can see here some pretty basic stuff. Now this one's pretty wild, ray gun. So we'll double click that and say load. And sure enough, there we go. We get our ray gun. Now, is this animated? So I don't think this one is particularly animated. It might be that none of the presets are animated. Yeah, it doesn't look to be animated. You've got, of course, your red shift example, which I sort of demonstrated, your blue shift, your glowy mist. So let me get back over here to this light and let's get into those distant lights. And now we can go over here to distant lights and let's pick something fun, like that thing with the neon plasma. So we'll load that up. And sure enough, there you go. There's our light. We kind of left it high in the sky there. So yeah, you can start experimenting with some of these included presets. And again, I mentioned third parties. Third parties also came out with their own textures. These are just using all the ones that come with LightWave, like turbulence. And then we got a gradient here using previous layers, some fun stuff. The third parties, they would add and inject their own procedurals. These are just the ones that come with LightWave 6, where the third parties would give you a bunch of extra ones and do all kinds of wild and fun, neat stuff. And again, is this one animated from out of the box? I don't think so, but that doesn't mean you can't, right? So looking at this texture right now, I'll just do this really quick for you as we get near the end of this video. Here's the position. If we move it on Z, you can see it moving, right? So we can come up here, we'll create a keyframe around 30. Again, we're just gonna kind of repeat what we did already. And there we go. And we'll go ahead and make the end linear, start linear. And if we make a preview now, there you go. You can see it moving. Even as it builds the preview, you can see it moving. You confirm that you've moved the texture. This is a very simplistic example of, the basis for so many effects that would be coming forward. The artist sitting here and tinkering with this, and you can drive this. I mean, I'm doing a simple move, a linear motion, right? That's not really that advanced, but you're given the tools to start playing around and animating and mixing textures together to create your own interesting effects. And shows like, Battlestar Galactica and, heck, even CSI, Firefly, these shows, those early shows, even Star Trek Voyager, a lot of Star Trek Voyager using these tools to use these effects all in LightWave. A lot of these type of effects you're seeing over here in this little preset shelf were often relegated to post houses who, were basically, their job was to create effects. They use powerful things like, I'm probably gonna get these names wrong. You guys are always great, as always, leaving comments down below, correcting me or letting me know. I think, what was it, the Flame Bay or Flame or the Henry or something that, of course, Houdini, that would do all these effects. But there were dedicated facilities that their job was to add things like all of these effects to the shots that the 3D artists would create over at the studio that they worked at, right? It was neat finally getting some of these kind of tools in our off-the-shelf software that Joe Bob and Joe Sally could just get, Joe Sally, interesting, could get at home themselves and do, right? So this was a neat little adventure here, these volumetric lights, really opening up the effects capability of LightWave. And of course, more things would come later with particle systems and volumetric, popcorn systems like hypervoxels that generated smoke poofs and things like that. We'll get into that in other videos. I just wanted to cover this volumetric system in LightWave 6. It's a lot of fun. You can fire it up pretty simply. If you just go through and watch what I've done in this video, I know it's a little chaos. You can pick it up pretty quick. I mean, you saw how simple it is. You add a light, you turn on volumetric options, and it brings you right into this panel. And thankfully, with this Viper system, you can get feedback right away, so you know if you're doing something right or wrong. It allows for some really fun experimentation. Great path to learning on this. So I hope you enjoyed this really brief covering of the volumetric light system of LightWave 6. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. I know it's not the most exciting all the time, but it is neat showing off this old technology. I can't believe how old some of this stuff is. 20 years, 26 years old with some of this software still. It's kind of spooky how if you look at some current movies, sometimes you see glimpses of the past in there, and you kind of wonder what happened to all the progress. Okay, enough of me being snarky. I'll see you guys later.